A happy child?
Yes. I remember very little but having a good time, being happy as a child.
Where were you brought up?
Mostly in Wales, in Swansea, between the ages of 3 or 4 and 12, with a year in America towards the last third of that. Then Cambridge, then London. London from 14 or 15 on.
Tell me about your mother. Was she important in your life?
Yes, I think my mother's at least as important as my father in forming what I am. I think I get all sorts of stuff from my mother that that wouldn't be there otherwise. My mother has what I have, which finds it very difficult to blame anyone for anything, which is quite a useful arrow for a writer, or absence of an arrow. She is very unshockable about what people do or are capable of doing, and I think I am too.
When you were young, were you aware that your father was a writer at an early age, or did that take a bit of time to sink in?
I knew he was a writer, and I knew he disappeared into his study a lot. I didn't know what kind of writer he was. He could have been writing westerns or sex and shopping novels. But I think I intuited that they were probably the mainstream novels, although I didn't know what the mainstream was. I didn't read him till I was 17 or 18. So he was there all right when my adolescent formation began as a writer, but he wasn't dominating, and he never gave me a single word of encouragement, which I think is tremendously important. I think writers who encourage their children to become writers, to be writers, who snatch up their juvenilia and see merit in it, are really being egotistical. And also it's very, very likely to be a false promise, is it not? Since I seem to be one of the only few cases of it working out.
The other writers about the house?
For a time, for many years, my father was married to the novelist Elizabeth Jane Howard, and I lived in that house, as did my brother for many years, and so there was a kind of factory for a while.
Larkin visited in Wales. Do you remember him?
Yes, I do. He visited many times.
What do you remember him for?
Well, I remember him for this famous sort of pocket money deal, because my godfather, Bruce Montgomery, who wrote under the name of Edmund Crispin and wrote music for doctor-at-large films, was insanely generous and seldom sober, and was always going around. He always had a pound note in his hand wherever he went, because whatever he wanted quickly and badly. And when he came to visit, he always was pouring money at us, my brother and me. I mean, we really couldn't believe how much money he gave us. 2 and 6, 10 bob or something, but outlandish amounts of money. And when it came for Larkin to tip the boys, he would, it was always a very grim moment, because we knew, A, that he didn't really like children. We were told that. Although that's kind of flattering to feel you're a kind of bandit, that people like children, so it's rather, you feel kind of dangerous not being liked. He didn't like children. He was genuinely very mean. So he would dole out 3 pennies to me and 4 pennies to my brother. Always index linked, went up very slowly over the years. I think the last time he gave us money, it was sort of 9p for my brother and 6p for me.
Did your father have moods and glooms and anxiety attacks?
No, he wasn't a very hands-on dad. It was always a great thrill when he did join in a game of football or playing on the beach or something. It didn't happen very often. No, what he was is what all writers are. I think this is a neglected subject. He was only ever about 75% there, even when he was there. All writers get more and more sadly aware that this is what they're doing, but there's a certain sort of imposture about being a writer when they're not being writers, because they're not. It's like being a snob. You're never off duty if you're a snob. A writer is never off duty. A writer is always preoccupied with what he's doing, but also looking around in this vampiric way for more material, for more blood. And looking back now, I see that my father was pretty much like that, as indeed I am.
Your father and mother divorced. How did that affect you?
It told me that life was tougher than I had previously suspected. No, it was a hard time.
Your schooling became fairly nomadic.
There was always a huge ordeal starting a new school. It was always, it made of you an ingratiating person. You had to, made you good at mapping out the power struggles, the force fields of a new playground, a new classroom. I suppose it sharpened your instincts for survival. It meant my way of getting around it, apart from stealing a lot of cigarettes from home and offering them around, my way of getting around it was by being amusing again, by trying to deflect class antagonisms and height difference antagonisms with humor, with self-deprecating humor.
You got expelled, I think.
Yeah, but I got expelled from a really rough school, a school that it was almost impossible to get expelled from by normal criminal means. I mean, you could burn the school to the ground and not get expelled. Beat up.
Hands up the boy who?
Yeah, beat up a master and not get expelled. I got expelled because I sort of left the country to act in a film, the film A Highway in Jamaica. I got a part in that film by a series of flukes, and we disappeared, my mother and I. And when I came back, they said, stay away. So I, it was from left field, as always.
It says somewhere that you played poker every night for 3 years running when you were, what, school or just after school?
School, yeah.
Oh.
Late school.
I mean, you stayed up every night?
It was a family thing with my step-uncle and a lodger friend of us all. And
I see. It was before the cocoa rather than all night.
That's right. No, it wasn't in some den either. It was an innocent family occupation.
We must get the innocent bit into the cuttings. Are you close to your father?
Yeah. I see him a couple of times a week.
Do you like his books?
Very much. I think I began with him as my main influence. Various divisions and bifurcations are now clear, but and I still think that if he'd been born when I was born and vice versa, we would have written something like each other's books.
Does he like your books? Does he read them?
Not much. The last book but one that he read all of was published in 1976. But he did read my last novel, Time's Arrow, and read it at a sitting. And the pleasure that news gave me, I suppose, indicates the displeasure of his failure to read all the intervening novels.